I was kind of just kidding. I'm,
What? You're already wiping us off the map, so
honestly, I was out of town and I was like, we don't have a go team meeting.
No, but we do.
Yes. Okay, I think everybody's in. Sorry about that, guys. All right. Okay, we're live.
No. I realized I meant to go off mute and instead put myself on mute. So I think everybody got the notice. I think we're still streaming. So I will call this meeting of the Maryland Go team to order. It is 6:39 p.m. on April the 8th. Paul, would you call roll?
Yes. Sharyn Briscoe,
Present.
Christy Perez,
Present.
Allison Thompson,
Present.
Paul Robertson, Ashley Hanshaw, no, Monica Waldman,
Present.
Missy Snyder,
Present.
Elizabeth Broderick,
Present.
Scott Thorpe, absent, and then Kelsey Boyjan.
Present.
So we have a quorum.
Excellent. All right, I'm going to share my screen, I think. Okay. Can everybody see this draft meeting agenda that was circulated in advance and posted? Gonna scroll. You can see it's tight and focused. So, can I get a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting?
Motion to approve. Second.
Who is it that motioned to approve the first?
I did, Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you.
I believe Christy was the second.
Got it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Speak up or raise your hand. Paul, I'm assuming that the motion passed.
He looks. Sorry, looks like it to me.
Okay, excellent. So next, I'm going to bring up the meeting minutes from our previous meeting, which was on Monday, March 11th. This too was posted on the Maryland Go Team website, so hopefully all Go Team members have had a chance to peruse. I'm just going to do a quick scroll. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the meetings? I'm sorry, the minutes of the March 11th Maryland Go Team meeting?
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Or both. Any opposed? All right. So that motion passes. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the agenda. We set this meeting right before spring break, decided to have this meeting really for, excuse me, to serve two purposes. Number one, so that we could all touch base about the information that we have currently available on the principal selection process, which I think is just the final principal profile information that was circulated by Matthew Brown to all of us right before spring break. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at it. I brought up the agenda again because in the agenda I outlined the principal selection timeline that was provided to us, which indicates that the week of April 8th, which is this week, there will be the Tier 2 screening, which to my understanding is a review of resumes of candidates. and that there will be some of us involved in that, but I have not heard any additional information about that. So I don't know if there's anybody from, excuse me, APS or the Go Team office on the meeting who might be able to share information, but in any event, it's again my understanding that this is supposed to be happening this week and that potentially information will be forthcoming to those of us participating.
And so
then-
did you get that from Matt Rogers?
Yes, I thought it was Brown, but it must be Rogers.
Yeah, Miss
Anyway,
Matt. Oh, I thought it was Paul Brown.
Yeah, I think it was Matthew Rogers.
It was,
Yeah.
yeah.
In any event,
Matt-
this is the timeline that that he sent around, and then again right before spring break, I asked him, you know, is this looking like the real timing? And he said yes. So,
Okay.
and then
Hi,
and then
this, hi, this is Carolyn. That is, I think there was a flyer that was disseminated in the community regarding the dates for or the potential weeks that things would be occurring. And I think that's where you're pulling those dates from. And I think as we get towards the week, there will be more specific time because Matt sent me the timeline that was sent out, and I believe that is correct. The week of April 8th, week of
Yeah.
April 15th, 29th, and then the finalists. So yes, that would be correct.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so this was definitely pulled from the flyer that he sent to us and that was sent out, as you mentioned, to the community. And then I confirmed it with him. So again, at least as of right before spring break, this was the timing we were looking at. I just don't
Mhm.
know more detail about when or exactly what is happening this week. It's just, so I'm just indicating it's my understanding that this is a resume review week. And that next week,
Sorry, Allison, can I just interrupt for a second? I just pulled up his email and that is what he said. That the resume review would involve the Go Team chairs, Paul Brown and him. So that would be this week, but same as you, I haven't heard any more detail about it.
I think you should just email him and just say, hey,
What's
I
that?
noticed. Yeah, what's happening? It's April 8th. We have the week. Will we be doing it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday?
Mhm.
How can we be involved? You know,
yeah,
are we involved? He told you that you would be reviewing resumes?
yes.
The Go Team chair
Mhm.
would be
Oh, yeah.
reviewing
They
along
they
with
might be just pulling them together. I would just ask him what day should you expect
Yeah.
to do
yeah,
that.
it would have been
He'll respond.
So I reached out to Matt today because I was under the impression that he was going to be invited or someone from HR. It would have been very helpful to have them in this process just to talk over the details. But like Principal Briscoe said, if you reach out to him, if he doesn't reach out to you all before tomorrow or tomorrow by the end of the day, if you reach out to him, he will be able to at least speak to what that timeline looks like because they're also having multiple schools that are going through the same process at the same time.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, and honestly, that is what I had intended to do. Following this meeting, I mostly just wanted to make sure everybody sort of again, Carolyn, great to have you here. That if you had superior information about the timing shift, that would be great to know. Otherwise, this is my understanding. Again, this April 8th week will be resume review. April 15th week, which is next week, will be tier 1 school community interviews. I believe that he said that it would be whittled down to 3 candidates, that myself, the Maryland Education Foundation president or chair, I'm not entirely sure of the title, the I think the PTA president, and I think maybe the entire Go team actually is going to be involved in that interview week along with those other folks. And then there's a handful of folks, obviously, from APS also. And then April 29th week will be the superintendent interviews and then the finalist recommendation. So just kind of getting that benchmarking for everyone to have an awareness of the timing. The discussion item really for the Go team, I just wanted to give everyone an opportunity really before, the resume review. Now that we have the final principal profile that was provided to us right before spring break, and I'm sure everybody's had a chance to look at it. I know that many of us were also involved in the staff forum and/or the community forum that were held right before spring break, where there were folks online and they kind of went through some of the raw data that folks had submitted through the survey, and there were comments being provided, at least in the community forum, I know, because that's the one that I attended. So it's my understanding that the final principal profile essentially attempted to distill all of the information and feedback that was submitted through either the survey or those 2 meetings that were held towards the end of March. This is the profile. I'm going to do a quick scroll because, again, I know the entire Go team had it before. And what I really want to do is just kind of open it up and give the Go team members an opportunity to, make any comments, ask any questions, propose any items for discussion about the profile or the process, that you think we ought to talk about before we get into the resume review, the interviews, and the things we have coming up in the next days, really, but 2 weeks.
So
I want to say something about the list. I think that if anybody has actually taken a look at the list, you can see that the pendulum swings very broadly to the left and to the right.
Mhm.
And I think that oftentimes, we begin, thinking with emotion and from our own experience. And I just think that you have to kind of look through that and make sure that we're giving people a fair and reasonable chance. So you imagine applying for a job and these are all the things that the people are asking for. It's a lot to sort through. So I just think that it's really important for the Go team to kind of take it with a grain of salt and consider what qualities. I mean, this is from everybody involved. I think it's really, it would do us a big favor to kind of just sift through those and just put a little thought into that, because it's impossible to please everybody from this.
To
Yeah.
that point, I do have a question about the process that, Allison, if you're gonna be asking, like sending out an email to Matthew and asking questions, is as the Go team, are we submitting our questions to the candidates in advance so that there's really only one person moderating the conversation? Or are we all going to be allowed to come off of mute and have some dynamic conversation with each candidate?
I don't know the answer to that. I think it's a
No, I'm saying to
great
ask
question.
Matthew.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
because I do
generally
think we can distill this list down and
well,
ask
generally,
questions pointed to it.
well, I can tell you that generally in the community interview, and I have been in one recently, that they're in person, so you don't have to come off mute. You can just kind of, raise your hand, and that there are, there's definitely a protocol. There's some, some standard of how they proceed, and so they'll all have the same question. I don't know if the people get those questions in advance. I don't think that they do. But it will be the same questions, and then they will allow time for follow-ups.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So you want to think about you want to think about it in terms of like, if there's 6 people coming in the same day, they're all going to literally get the same questions in the same order. And it's it's a process, and then those people will be ranked, and that is how they've done it in the past. I don't know. I've recently done this, so I don't know if the procedure has changed. Carolyn might be able to help me a little bit better with that. Carolyn, do you know that's generally how it goes?
It has, I believe that we definitely want to reach out to Matt. Matt is one of the newer directors, and I know I think when Sharyn, Principal Briscoe came, it was under Dr. Luck, I
Oh, no,
believe.
no, 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 no.
So,
I've been
oh,
in
you've been
all
on
of
the
them.
panels. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I think that, the process could have changed. I just want them to be able to speak to what your expectation would be. And I don't want to cloud anything because I haven't sat in one of these interviews as the executive, but Sharyn has, and so her memory is probably.
I was in it last year,
Yes, you
and
were.
yeah, and I was just on assistant principal pool
Mm-hmm.
interviews last week. And so, it's a professional job.
Yes,
It's
it is.
it's very structured, it's very fair, it's very even. There's just the same amount of time. Everybody gets the same thing, but they do, I mean, but we're people, so there's a allowance for follow-up questions and things like that. So you don't have to worry about being unmuting yourself because they've been in person, and you'll just be able to say, like, I have a follow-up.
So, Sharyn, is there a time limit to the interviews so that they can be prepared? Like, you just can't go on and on forever. So I know
Yeah,
people
you
have
can't go
lots of
on and on. You
questions.
can't go on and on forever. There's definitely a time limit. I don't know what the time limit is per question,
Okay.
but I know that there's a time limit for this session.
I think in response to the profile, as Allison said, there's a lot of information. Actually, you said this to Ms. Briscoe, and a lot of it kind of conflicts. I don't think it's possible to get the level of information that I was hoping was going to be in there, but some sense of like where the majority lies would be.
Mhm.
One of the things that struck, well, the other two other thoughts. One was that I would appreciate understanding kind of what the community feedback was versus the
Staff
faculty,
feedback.
because I think that's valuable to understand the perspective.
Yeah.
And then there was one piece also that I was curious about, which was there seemed to be a differing of opinion around whether it's better to hire from within the school or from outside the school. I
Mhm.
don't have a perspective on that. I'm just really curious. I'd love to hear from the teachers or from you, Ms. Briscoe, what that feels like to have somebody new come in from the outside versus somebody who has been essentially homegrown.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess just real quick to clarify, Elizabeth, it was my understanding that because I picked up on the same thing, but it was a lot of within the district, not necessarily within the school.
Okay.
I guess that's what I mean, and maybe others noticed it was more school focused, but from my perspective, I thought it was more like within APS versus outside APS, or is more so than within Mary Lynn versus outside Mary Lynn.
Mhm. Well, so
I didn't read every line in great detail, so you may have had a more accurate interpretation.
so the answer to the question about who gave the comments, whether or not it was a staff member or a parent group, I don't have that information. I don't know what the actual survey looked like, because a lot of surveys just kind of like tease that out on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So do you recall if they asked you, like, if you were a parent or
I think they did. So I'm wondering, Allison, if we could go back to now I can't
Matt
remember.
Rogers?
Oh, Matt, whatever his name is, and just ask him if he could segregate the feedback that way. It may be too much to ask at this point, but I'd be interested.
They can disaggregate that. I don't think that that's a big deal. I think that they'll be able to tell you which people said what. In terms of my personal opinion about it, I don't necessarily have one. I will defer to the teachers for that. I've been doing this a long time, so I see benefits of both. So sometimes it's like great to have fresh eyes, and then also I think sometimes it's great to have somebody that kind of just can pick up the baton and run with it. I think that there are different, I think that a person can do both, you know, at the same time, just in particular areas. So, but maybe the teachers can kind of give their feedback a little bit more about whether they prefer somebody who is familiar versus somebody who's unfamiliar. Kelsey, Monica, and
Well,
Hanshaw's having a baby.
Yeah.
Or had a baby.
So I do recall from the meeting with the teachers that there were like 119 or 125 surveys that were responded, and I believe there were 19 teachers that responded, and the rest were community members. If I recall, I don't recall exactly the numbers, but I think it was like 19 teachers, and then the rest were community members. And one of the things that I recall from the teacher one, I attended to both, and I remember one of the important things that was brought up in the teachers, it was this, like the community wanted all once, and there were divisions between whether we wanted someone that had been at Mary Lynn or that was part of Mary Lynn, or or someone completely from
Or
the
like
outside, the cluster.
Mhm.
Or that someone that had already been at Mary Lynn and had different roles within Mary Lynn and outside within the cluster, like had been a teacher as well as an instructional coach, as well as an assistant principal, and had experience with that. And I think most teachers, from my recollection, we kind of favor a person who has done most of those jobs before and has a clear understanding, and also a recent, because in the recent years, there's been so many changes with curriculum and, and things like that, that I think most of the teachers were more in favor of someone within the cluster that knows a bit the Mary Lynn community and can kind of, continue. I mean, nobody's going to be like Miss Briscoe, and we love her, and there's no replacement for her or Miss Benson, to be honest. But we kind of wanted someone that has a clear understanding of what our community is like, and someone who also has had experience within our cluster, not necessarily only at Mary Lynn, but also with people from within our community, and kind of has an idea of where we kind of how we follow the kids and how we kind of get them to grow to go on to Howard and Midtown. So I don't know if Ms. Snyder or Ms. Boyajian want to say something different, but I think the majority of the teachers favor, for the most part, kind of someone within the cluster. But there were some teachers who said they wanted someone who had worked outside the cluster and who had worked in some other school system.
Well, I will
second that.
Yep.
Sorry.
I will definitely say that on the survey, I put, please clone Sharyn. Because, I mean, let's face it, what we have going on is working, and it's working really well. And so, I think my coworkers and I, for the most part, have a consensus that we want to keep this momentum going. We understand the needs of our kids. We understand our parents. We understand our community, and for administration, that's going to be incredibly important. We have a very special thing going on. That's why we're, cooking with gas, as Sharyn says all the time.
No, you meant to say number one.
Yeah, and number one, yeah. But the truth is that we have something that, the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, or whatever that is. It's we understand the level of pushing our gifted learners to a place of growth, which has always been very tricky for us. That's just an example of something that is very special for our school. But in order to continue to keep maintaining number one, maintaining number 9, all of that, or, even pushing that even further, it's going to take somebody that really has a clear understanding of our community, of our kids, and how, Sharyn works with the staff, because of the way that she understands and respects us as human beings, and that we have a life, and that, you know, there are things in the world that are very, very important to us aside from work, those are reasons why every person in the building gives her 150%. And, you know, we've got these kids that are absolutely soaring to crazy levels. It's because we feel respected. And, you know, I think, you know, my coworkers and I can imagine that everyone feels that same way, that, you know, it's a concern because we are used to having this level of mutual respect and lack of micromanagement and, you know, this kind of stuff, because Sharyn knows that we know what we're doing and that we are going in and giving all that we have. And so, you know, that's just,
let me just stop you there before I start crying on the table. No, I appreciate all those things, but I do think that you can kind of synthesize, and thank you so much, Missy. I love all of y'all too. And I you know, this is, it is bittersweet, but I do think that there's a lot of those kinds of points, the salient points that you're making that can be drawn out of there that can kind of just maybe make the list a little bit more succinct. And so what you're looking for is somebody like who doesn't micromanage people, who has, you know, a healthy boundaries in terms of, you know, work life, somebody who appreciates a work-life balance. But there are things that you can maybe encompass all of those beautiful, lovely things that you said about me. Say them again at my party, okay? No, I'm just teasing. I'm teasing. But I think that there is a way to kind of capture that from the staff side, and I you know, I appreciate that what you and Monica are saying. You want somebody who is going to allow you to do the job, yet hold the school to high standards at the same time, and that's just like a very succinct way of saying that. So maybe you can take some of the things that are on the list already and whittle them down to the Go team's perspective, but that list right there is encompassing the whole everybody. You know,
I want to
so
say
That's why I'm saying that we should be able to structure the questions in a way to the candidates, even if there's just a short list that everybody gets asked, that directs the questions from that community feedback.
Right. I hear what you're saying. I don't believe that the questions are generated from the parent body or the Go team or from this list. I think the questions are generated by the district, and they kind of go in line with what the district's overarching goals are in terms of like literacy, communication, things that fit in with the APS 5 that we talk about all the time on here. And so I think that there are questions, and maybe that you can ask Matt, that there are questions that are very, you know, I guess kind of, you know, a little bit more on the technical side in terms of what the district is looking for as far as, you know, scores, achievement and growth and moving kids, versus more like personal and personnel type questions that may be more influenced by the community that you're serving. You know, some communities want somebody who's like a really no nonsense disciplinarian because their community warrants that. You know, that's the kind of thing that they really, really need to get the, you know, bring the people together, because you know, they may have, those might be their issues. Our issues are a little bit different, like what Missy was saying. A lot of times in schools like ours, people overlook kids who are already kind of high performing. You know, kind of like that Gabby who won the contest.
I was so surprised. I was just not even on my radar.
I'm so excited for her.
Me too.
apparently there were about 18,000 entries, and so it was very special.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. But, you know, anyway, I think you guys get my point. I think that maybe there's a way to kind of understand that these are you know, Atlanta Public Schools is an organization unto itself. It has rules, it has standards, it has things that it has to follow. Maybe the question then is, can we take community voice and add a question or two to that list of questions? So that would be a question for Matt.
Yeah, because your point about the disciplinarian, like it just brings back all of the Howard principal turnover problems. And when I was filling out that survey, I was thinking through that. Like, I don't want to go through 2 or 3 principals to get it right. Like, I
Yeah.
want somebody from our community that understands the needs of
Yeah.
our
Well,
community.
there's different needs. I always use this as an example when I allow the parents to fill out the like, what I want for my kid for the next school year. I use this as an example. I have a parent that used to say my kid has a lot of allergies. They don't want anybody who's constantly cleaning the classroom with Clorox wipes because it's offensive to their skin. They don't like it. So it doesn't have anything to do with the teacher or the personality or anything like that. It's just about the environment. It's just kind of like it's a one-off type of question. And so I think that is, the basic questions are going to be of the district, of what the district is looking for in terms of moving schools, maintaining safety, things like that. But there are other things that are important to our community. And so can you harness those tidbits to compile that into something that you're able to present to the district that says, we understand that you all are going to be asking these questions. Will you be sure to also include this?
I would like to also say that the benefit to having someone that's already in our cluster, they hopefully have built relationships with stakeholders in the community, whether it's like the principal at Howard or the AP at Howard or people at Midtown. That is such a huge benefit if they know the cluster and know where our kids are going, and have, people spread out throughout different schools within the cluster that they can lean on. I think that's very, very important in the process, at least just from talking to other teachers on my grade level and on other grade levels. They say, having someone within our cluster that understands not only the disciplinarian aspect, but, where our students are headed in the future is important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're a very close-knit cluster. We spend a lot of time together as principals and teachers and colleagues. And so I think that that's absolutely something that you can say, like, I would really like it to be somebody who is familiar with this place. So now I guess it's just, the work of kind of sifting through all of the things, all of the words that you guys have on those pages. It's a lot.
I think that part of the benefit too of having someone that is experienced with our community and our kids and our staff is that you hit the ground running. You have all these things already sort of that you understand, so you can really hit the ground running and move forward faster.
So you would just say you want somebody who's ready on day one. Somebody who's not going to need a lot of training.
And who won't say no to all my crazy questions.
The other thing I remember that was said was that we wanted someone within the community. I know we can't have a neighbor like Ms. Briscoe who lives in the community, but someone who is familiar with the community, who will attend the community gatherings or the movie or things like that, that respects the family part, but also like has a.
So you want to say, like, I want somebody who is present and
Right.
willing to attend all Mary Lynn events. Like, there are ways to say that and to maybe ask those kinds of questions within the confines of what the questions that are going to be. You just kind of have to look and see what it is that's already been said and just kind of synthesize.
Would it be helpful if we tried to pare down this longer list and then shared it with the people who are going to be, share it with the whole group, but maybe like the chair and co-chair could communicate a consolidated list with some idea questions.
Feed it to ChatGPT for us. I bet you could come up with a pretty good list for us.
Well, I was talking with Ms. Schumacher, and she said she's had a lot of experience with taking surveys in this format and paring them down, and she offered to help do that. So I mean, we could obviously look at the end result and see if we agree with it, and if we did, then
and just so you know, I do think that she has agreed to be a co-chair of the PTA next year, which I know that that's something that's kind of been important to people. They were considering whether or not to include other parent entities or parent leadership groups, because we have the foundation and the Go team and the PTA, who are all equally important pieces of the triangle. So if you all are good with moving towards that, I'm actually going to I'm not going to be a part of that discussion. I think that it is, I want to just allow everybody to be sure that I am firmly committed according to the timeline. That person's coming on May 6th or May 9th. I can't remember the day, but I'm beyond committed to helping and guiding and passing the baton to that person. I know that I will not be present at any of the interviews. I will not be asking a question. I will not be reading any resumes. And so I will recuse myself so that you can talk about the things that you want. And, there may be things that you're like, I hate that Sharyn did such and such, and so I don't need to be on the phone for that. But if there's any other questions that you have in terms of guidance to help you get started on that, let me know. Does everybody feel comfortable with that? I kind of understand. I just don't want to. I don't even want. What do they call that? Plausible deniability. I wasn't there. I don't know.
I mean, honestly, I've been sitting here making, little notes, but also scrolling through this very long document. And, in addition to being sometimes contradictory, it is also extremely repetitive. And so I don't know that I personally feel like I need somebody else to sort of go in and like synthesize it. I think this meeting and this discussion is helpful. And to Sharyn's point, there are going to be others. There's going to be like a nice kind of core group of people involved in that interview process, who will then hear the responses, even if they are to sort of stock district mandated questions. And I think actually the most important thing might be
just to note though, just for the record, I don't think that all of the questions from the district are the same for every school. I do think that they kind of curate the questions a little bit more to what the school needs are. So I just don't want anybody to think that it's all the same question.
No, and honestly, I've done tons of interviews, and you have to ask you have to ask everyone the same question, because you have to give everyone the same opportunity to answer the same question, and that makes perfect sense. And it's great to hear different people's responses to the same question. So I don't think that's the issue. I think, frankly, getting some clarity, and it sounds like Matthew Rogers is the person to do this, and that unfortunately we're going to have to do it, sort of on the fly. And while all of this is moving, getting clarity just around the details of the process, exactly when things are happening. Because it strikes me that it would be pointless to go through this, having us involved in providing feedback, reviewing resumes, and doing this tier 1 interview if we didn't at some point give somebody information or feedback about what we're thinking on that. And so my mind has already gone to, well, when do we all then convene to talk about like what that feedback is going to be, and plan for that, like make sure that we've all had time not only to participate in the interviews and review all of this, have the discussion today, but then come back together and figure out how we then say whatever it is we have to say, to the district about sort of the feelings or the outcome of it.
So what you're really wanting is like a more specific instead of the broad timeline. Like when he's saying the week of April 8th, you're kind of asking like, is it going to be on April 9th, 10th, 11th? What time? And am I involved in that process?
Yeah. I mean, and I'll just for everyone to just sort of have it on their radar, like next week on Monday and Tuesday, I am going to be flying to LA and back. And so I can't do anything on Monday or Tuesday next week. So that just is. And so I'm going to put that out to Matthew Rogers and, say that we just need to figure this out. And I guess too, like melding that with the rules and requirements of the Go team. And maybe this falls outside of that because it does involve, the PTA, the Maryland Education Foundation, like all of us who are involved are going to need to get together and have this discussion, but we're going to have to plan a time where after the interviews, we talk about it. That just seems like something we're going to have to do.
When we talk about this to this group, what are your main priorities or your thoughts? Like, how involved do you feel like this group should be in terms of resume looking as the most important part to you actually sitting in the interviews themselves? I mean, is there a trust in the district on the screening process? Because I think that a lot of times there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of people that have to agree and have to be in the same room, and that may be why Matt gave a week span of time so as not to be really specific purposely.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that anybody here today ought to have an answer to this. I'm highlighting what I think others have said, which is that I think we have questions that we're going to need to pose to him, and that is what I will do following this meeting so that all of us can have some sense of exactly what we need to do by when. And the only thing I'm suggesting is that I want everyone to have on their radar that it strikes me that whenever that interview day is, there's probably going to have to be another time, whether it's immediately following the interviews, whether it's the next day, I don't know, because we don't have the answers to those questions yet. Where we all then, have time to absorb and internalize all the information that we have gotten. And then collectively, as opposed to 14 different sets of feedback going back to the district, we all talk about it with everyone who is involved and send, collective feedback back to the district.
Do you think that, I appreciate that too, Allison. Do you think that there is to send, you were saying you need to follow up with Matt. Do you think one thing that might be good for this group to do is kind of just generate a list of questions for him with a specific response time, a timeline on the response? Or do you think that's something that you're just comfortable doing?
I can go either way, whatever the group wants to do. I mean, what I have down is that we have questions around the process in terms of both timing and mechanics. And, I think I can bullet out some examples. Again, I don't necessarily think it's fair or warranted, to send them a list of 25 questions. Like, we need to know every minute detail and we need to know it to the minute that it's going to happen. But having just some guidelines about timing and process, I think, is important. And then I have written down that we have questions about the data that Elizabeth raised. If there's an ability to get any information from the principal profile in the data, to know if there is some indication about whether comments came from staff versus community, and whether they were a particular comment represents the majority of responses or not. And I actually think maybe for those two things, if there are specific points or categories of information where we're particularly interested in knowing that maybe we should, talk about it, people tell me, and I will highlight those for him, as opposed to asking him to go through like the entirety of the document and tell us with every single comment. but that's sort of what I have on there. So if folks are comfortable with me just kind of drafting an email, I'm happy to do it. If there's something more specific that you definitely want asked, I think tell me and I will put it in.
Well, I will say that Elizabeth just sent the chat GPT and it's amazing. What are we doing here? That is good. What did you do? Just
I
enter.
literally just copied the principal profile into ChatGPT and said, please summarize this. Voila. Yeah, I think, Allison, to your question, I know what you said, what's coming from community versus staff, but I feel like having heard from the staff on this call, I think I have a pretty good sense of what that sentiment is. And so I'm going to assume the rest is community. So I feel good about that. I think my lingering questions around process and timing and everything. And similar to you, I want to participate as best I can, but I also have a full calendar. And so I need to know things more than 24 hours in advance.
We still have a meeting scheduled for the April 30th, right?
We do.
That would be the Tuesday of the week of superintendent interviews.
Yeah.
And the superintendent interviews is after the community has already whittled it down to the 3 or 4 that they present to the superintendent. So if you have 200 resumes, they whittle it down to however many. And I know there's not 200 resumes. There's 20 resumes. They whittle it down to like the 6 to 8 people or 10 people they're going to interview. And then those people get narrowed down to who will go to the superintendent.
Well, I mean,
you're talking about, Paul, I think is after those top tier candidates are already selected.
So it's my understanding, and this actually led me to something that I think would be helpful. So I'm going to put a pin in this. It's my understanding there's the resume review, which is supposed to be happening this week. And I don't know how many resumes. Could be 200, could be 20. I don't know. And that after that, next week, I think that Matt indicated it's only going to be 3 candidates next week. So I think that the big whittling seems to then, I'm just deducing, coming from the resume review, which I guess leads me to the point of, if we're looking for.
So wait, I'm just sorry, just to clarify. Matt said that there's only going to be 3 candidates for the community to interview?
That was my understanding based on what he told us, yes. Now, whether he was confused and there's more, I don't know, but yes, that's what he communicated to us.
Okay, so in my experience, it's been that there have been a few more than 3 or 4, maybe like 6 to 8, and then the panel whittles those down to the 3 that will go to the superintendent. So that's not what you understood.
That's not what he said before, and that is a point of clarity that will be in the email.
That may have changed. They may be doing it different, but that has not been my experience. Carolyn.
Oh, Sharyn, I'm sorry. I have like 2 or 3 meetings going. Sharyn, you were saying about the whittling down to 3.
Yeah,
they were
under the impression that this week they're going through the resumes and that next week they're going to have 3 candidates. And I was saying that I think that the panel gets to interview a few more than 3 candidates.
I know that the mental health,
according to, let me look at Matt,
is still planning to do something in May. However, they are focusing on the stress awareness for this month because for May, they have some other activities that they're currently planning around the time that they're also going to be graduating and
so it appears that the week of, hold on, let me turn this down. The week of April the 8th, that is, I'm seeing right now, and I will verify, or Allison, you can verify with Matt that it looks like either the 10th or the 11th. It says review of candidates, schedule candidates to tier 3 interview. And then the week of April the 15th, develop interview questions with committee based on leadership profile. And it does say identify, it looks like the top 2 to 3 candidates. So yes, we really need to clear that up so that everyone can be on the same page.
Yeah, so
what I'm
I
seeing-
think that the panel interviews the several, the 6 to 8 or whatever, how many people.
And then you dwindle it down.
Dwindle that down to 3 that they want to present to, they say to the superintendent, we'd be happy with these 3. Number 1, this is our order in which we want them.
That's fair.
This one number 1, this one number 2, and this one number 3.
Yeah,
That makes
because
sense.
it does look like the interviews come before the identification. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm saying to this group, like, how this week is the interview reading. Do you want to be involved in the interview reading, or do you want to just be involved, make sure that you're in front of those 6 to 8 candidates that get an interview before it goes to the superintendent? And that's something that this group will have to decide on, or ask exactly what that process is.
Yeah, I don't have the impression that it's something that we decide, but yes, it's something we need clarity on, which is part of what I'm going to be reaching out to Matt about. And I guess, regardless, I'm pretty sure that it's all of us that are involved in the the interviews, whatever that means next week. I don't think it's all of us that are involved in the resume review. So assuming that the outcome of the request for clarity to Matt Rogers, leads to some review of resumes, the thing that occurred to me that would be helpful is if anybody has any specific thoughts about specific things that you think it would be helpful to look for or look out for in a resume, to tell me now what those things are.
Good question. Great question.
Do we feel like the cluster has worked within the cluster, or has spent at least a year in a leadership position?
So there's a minimum of 3 years in a leadership position in Atlanta Public Schools anyway, just so you know that. And AP specifically, and or they can be a part of the in the principal's pool. If they're coming from within the district, and they're currently an AP, they have to go through a vetting process that's part of the principal's pool, that's led by a district leader currently. And so that part, I think that is going to be kind of like the given. There's a definite minimum criteria for number of years of experience. Now, where that experience is I think I hear what you're saying is that you want to make sure that experience is in a similar school demographic to Mary Lynn. So do you want to limit yourself and say the cluster, or do you want to say in a similar demographic to Mary Lynn?
Well, and I'm also thinking about, folks who are, there's going to be presumptively resumes that are coming from outside of the cluster and outside of APS, and it may be,
and outside of Georgia.
Yes, and things may be, kind of described differently. They may be titled differently. And so, to the extent that folks have, as specific thoughts, like Monica, I heard you say at one point, that it's that the teachers were talking about it being important to have experience and have it be recent experience in, as a teacher, as an instructional coach, and, presumptively in one of these other leadership type roles. Like, what do you consider recent experience? 2 years, 3 years, 5 years?
What we said is that they have had, what I said is that the gathering from the teacher information that I got was that she has not been in the classroom 15 years ago or 20 years ago, and has been in a leadership position for 10 years. You know, that it's that person has had recent experience in being in the classroom and kind of going through the process, you know, teacher, instructional coach, and AP. And I do know what Ms. Briscoe said.
So you're saying you want somebody who has many years of experience in various roles in a school.
Yes, but recent, not like, you know, not like she was a teacher in the classroom like 15 years ago, because things have evolved and changed so much. That's what I gather from the teachers. That was someone who has gone kind of through the changes in the last couple of years.
Or somebody who is abreast of current educational trends.
Correct. I mean, like that understands.
So maybe they weren't the teacher, because I can tell you neither me nor Ms. Benton has been in a classroom in 15 years, but you're abreast of educational trends. Correct. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I just want to help just make it succinct.
Yeah. Like current, like what you're saying. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to have been a teacher like you're stating.
But like you want them to be abreast of like of educational trends and best practices that are happening now.
Correct.
We're not going to be old school.
And that they have appreciation for like high achieving students and how to deal with, you know, a diverse population of learners.
Right. And not only focusing on the, you know, like what you're saying, Ms. Perez, like, you know, making those gifted kids, like Ms. Snyder was saying, you know, higher and pushing them higher, and also bringing those lower students into an equivalent, you know, level, and kind of having both those two things. That's what I gather from most of the teachers, that they want someone who has recently, you know, been through the process and understands how to push those kids, you know, higher.
Experience in high achieving schools.
Right.
Also, if they had experience with STEAM certification, that would be amazing.
Oh yeah. Or someone that's like jazzed up about it, you know, that is willing to take that on and really, you know, help, because it's a beast.
Yeah. And encouraging teachers to be collaborative and like come up with all these projects for their learning project.
It is a beast. And, you know, regardless of how much information you get and that type of thing, there's a level of buy-in that is needed from the staff for something that's really, for a lot of people, very foreign. And, you know, they already feel like they don't have the time of day to do what they're expected to do anyway. And now we've got PBLs and we've got all this other stuff going on. So having an administrator that is knowledgeable in the importance of STEAM, understanding, you know, where we are moving forward with it. You know, we're really, Stephanie and I are very much looking at making sure that the program that we are on top of our game, so other schools want to come and learn from us, you know, when it comes their turn and that type of thing. So having that support is going to be crucial for us.
Okay. Well, I think I have, you know, a lot of information. I am going to reach out. You are all going to be copied. So hopefully he will reply all and we'll all get the same response from Matthew. But I guess, you know, to keep things moving and wrap this up, just last call for any, you know, specific guidance, specific input, you know, on what to look for, what not to look for in the resume review part, and then just everybody else be on the lookout for a response, because I'm sure that people are going to be asking you to do things over the course of the next couple of weeks related to this process.
And you're going to be sending this tomorrow to Matt? So they
maybe tonight, but at least tomorrow.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, do they have till tomorrow to get back with you, or they better hurry up if they think about something else?
She said last call.
Yeah, okay. I know. Okay.
I'll wait until tomorrow. But if I don't do it early in the morning, it will be late. So
yeah, I understand. I know about it. Did we need to do a community?
We do. So let me just check something really quickly. Yes. Okay. Well, I think we may only have one community member who has joined, two, maybe three. We have a handful of community members who have joined us today, and bless you all for sitting through this, being here this evening. I'm going to move into the public comment portion and give those of us on participating in the meeting an opportunity for public comment. Before we move into that, the agenda noticed up to an hour for public comment. Because we only have 3 people, I suppose that technically means you could each have 20 minutes, but would urge all of you to be succinct in whatever you have to say. Because really the intention was to allow for multiple people to have the opportunity to be heard if we had sort of a mass influx. To be clear, under the Go Team rules, this public comment period is just that, meaning that it is an opportunity for the public to provide comment. It is not an opportunity to engage in discussion or do Q&A with Go Team members. So whatever comment you want to provide, we will hear. It will be noted in the minutes, but we won't be discussing that or responding to it during the meeting. So with that, I'm going to invite any members of the public who are on the meeting to raise your hand if you have something you'd like to say as part of the public comment period. You can either come off, you can put your camera on and actually raise your hand, or use the little thing in Zoom.
We have one person that was just here for a class.
There we go.
Marquita. Oh, there's Jahari.
Should I go first?
I'm going to give it just a second, just because I wanted to see if you were actually the only one who raised your hand, and you were definitely going to go first.
I was just commenting about Marquita because she sent us a note as a group that said that she's taking class. So that welcome. So go ahead, Jahari.
Hi, I hope I'm in the right place because I also see it's on YouTube, and I didn't know if I was supposed to sign in there. But
we're just live streaming to YouTube because that's what we try to do with these meetings.
Okay. Well, yes, this was very informative, and I appreciate all of the kind of transparency around this process when it comes to hiring the new principal. And I did have a question because I saw on the website in the notice for this, you could ask questions, but I understand if it's not being answered in this moment. And then I did also have a comment. And so my question was related to Ms. Benton's retirement as well. And so I didn't know if the process for the hiring of the AP happens simultaneously, or once the hire the principal, then the AP is hired by the principal.
So I can answer that question. It's a very different process. The principal process requires input from the community, et cetera. And the AP process is not. It's not. It's not like a board approved hire similar to a principal. So the new principal can come on in and pick their AP and keep it moving.
Okay, perfect. And then what happens if there's a failed search? Is an interim principal put in place, or does that never happen in the APS? So
that is a 100% district decision. If they do that, if they do a search and they don't find that the community or the district is satisfied with any particular candidate, they have the opportunity to start the search over again. Or they can do an interim. It'll be a district-based decision.
Got it. And so those are my 2 main questions. And I guess for my comment, I really just, I was on this meeting as well as a different district meeting with the district leaders about the public input. And what really struck me in both of these conversations is this emphasis on community and what our community is represented and what we want our community to look like. And I guess my question and comment is like, whose community are we talking about? Are we just talking about Candler Park, which relatively speaking is quite tiny to the like kind of larger APS community, larger Atlanta community that I really want my child to feel a part of? Because to be quite frank, the Candler Park community doesn't fully represent who he is in his totality. And so when we talk about community and say having to hire somebody who lives in the community or is in the Midtown cluster, I really worry that limits in a lot of ways the different candidates that can come to this position. And to be frank, I was wondering, like, even in the criteria set forth today, would say Ms. Briscoe qualify 5-10 years ago? And I want to make sure that, you know, things that to me that I value, which are like developmental science, like as Ms. Briscoe said, educational practices, cutting edge educational practices, kind of trump these things of like, do they live close by? Are they somebody who will come to a PTA event? I really want this to be grounded in educational research, the principles and values of not just Mary Lynn, but also like APS as a greater community. Because again, I keep coming back to like, I want my child and all of the children he goes to school with to realize they're part of this like larger nexus, like their communities don't begin and end and the parameters of Candler Park and Lake Claire, especially given the fact that what will redistricting look like? What will integrate, you know, all of these different elements. And so I really want to stress that point when it comes to the interviews, the resume review, you know, what are the qualifications of this person that run deeper than like, can I run into them at a coffee shop nearby?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yep.
and that's it.
Thank you,
Yep.
Jahari. I think those are some good points.
Agreed. Thank you. Thank you for joining and sticking with us. I think.
Oh, I do have one more comment, if that's okay. There was a lot of conversation about high achieving students, which understandable, we want our children to do well. And I say this as a parent of the high achieving students and coming from my own background, I'm really concerned about how can the principal support the students who aren't doing as well. You know, a lot of times high achieving students will continue to be high achieving students. At least that's what the research tells us. So, you know, I really want us to be aware of like how they can work in differentiated models, making sure they can meet the needs of varied learners and not just say the gifted kids in a school.
That's a great point, Jahari. And I think that, you know, we're all on the same page with that comment. And that the reason why we were naming that in particular is because a lot of times schools focus on that. The other is a given. We absolutely focus on students who need remediation or students who are average performing. I think that sometimes though what gets overlooked is the high achieving student. So yes, you are absolutely correct. And I just think for the purpose of this conversation, that's just, you know, the given. We are absolutely focused on all student achievement. Just the ones that generally get overlooked are students who are already doing well, because as you said, they're doing well, they're going to continue to do well, but are they being challenged? So that's just from my administrator perspective and from teacher perspective.
Okay. I see that we have Marquetta Moore, who I did see your note at the beginning that you're attending as a requirement for your endorsement class, but I don't want to discourage you from raising your hand and making a public comment if you want to. So please feel free. We also have Markeisha Howe joining us. So if either or both of you would like to make a comment, just raise your hand and let us know.
There's
Ms.
my
Moore, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Marquita Moore. I'm the master teacher leader at David T. Howard. This is my first year at David T. Howard, but I've been teaching for, this is my 13th year now. So I just appreciate you guys opening this avenue for teachers, teacher leaders, community members to be a part of this process. I didn't realize, even though Mary Lynn is a feeder school to David T. Howard, I didn't realize that you guys were looking for a new principal. So this was all news to me today. And then just learning about the process as well, I thought was very eye-opening. Like Ms. Harris, I would just encourage you guys to be open-minded, because the ratio of teachers to APs to principals is very small. So if you have to be an AP or an instructional coach in order to become a principal, your pool has shrank quite dramatically. So just encourage you all to be open-minded in who that future principal might be. Whether they're a part of the community or not, they may have a subset of skills that they might have to bring to the table. So just encourage you guys all to be open-minded in your search, and wish you guys good luck.
Thank you, and good
Thank
luck in your
you.
class. What is your degree? What are you getting?
This is for my teacher leader endorsement class.
All right, good for you, girl. Let's get it done.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anybody else? Going once, twice. Okay. All right. Well, then I'm going to close public comment, because we do not have any more individuals from the public who are indicating a desire to comment. We haven't had anyone else join the meeting since the beginning. So with that, may I have a motion to adjourn our Go Team meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
everyone?
All right, guys, who are you going for? Basketball's about to come on.
All right, we have to vote though, real quick.
Oh, go ahead.
Those in favor? Everyone, raise your hand. Any opposed?
Sorry, I jumped the gun.
That's okay. All right, motion passes. We are adjourned at 7:50 p.m.
All right,
Thank you all so much for doing this.
Who are we going for tonight?
Oh my gosh, I have not
Purdue?
even